Greetings, sending all some warm, positive vibrations this early day. Shout out to all of my early risers. So, this early day, just my early day reasoning, um, is I wanted to share some encouragement for those persons, those women, especially those Afro chocolate women that may be feeling away or feeling challenged um, at the thought of, and this may or may not be you, but maybe feeling away and not so confident about having very fine hair, right? Or we'll say thin hair, but I make an effort to be um, very, as much as I can, intentional about the words that I use because words are communication to our brain that drive a lot of feelings and emotions, which manifest in a lot of our behaviors. So for those women who uh, may determine they have very fine hair and feel very conscious about it, for those women that have lots of acne and acne scarring, for those women who feel or assess that their body temples are carrying a lot of additional weight in the form of adipose tissue, right? Or fatty tissue or unhealthy tissue. And I also wanted to touch on today relaxation and being very intentional about relaxation without the need for making it a big production, but it can be very helpful in helping us to get a focus and helping us to get very grounded and to feel better about ourselves. So I have always been a person that has been fascinated by what drives our behaviors. Oh, and before I forget, if you find any value here, you're welcome to subscribe to this channel where I share my journey of what I term radical self acceptance. Encouragement to start a garden, whether you're in a city environment or even if you have a very small space. Cultivating a movement practice, a personal movement practice for yourself, because I have found, and hopefully you will find it the one of the best therapies. Something I do that is so therapeutic that makes me feel so good. That is an immediate mood shifter, as well as really nourishing yourself. Not ideally peaceful, I will call in my simple way, peaceful consumption, peaceful firstly to your own brain, body, temple, arteries, your own mood, and then naturally that extending out to everyone else that we share the planet with. So those are the types of things that I share on this channel. You're welcome. So those are the things that I'm sharing here, and I think it's really important. I think anyone perhaps can find value, even if it's male or female. Of course, I am. I have manifested as a woman. I enjoy being a woman. But again, I wanted to touch this morning on fine hair and lioness hair. So I have on my head what has popped out of my scalp, sprout out of my scalp. It's very fine Afro textured hair. Now, it's no secret that we're marketed to all the time and we're sold things. And I would say even manipulated through fear. There's 6 basic fears and more human fears, but it sells products, and it really drives our behaviors. I think it's amazing that we leave school, that we can leave school, the public education system or popular education system, without really understanding our psyche, which companies invest in understanding our psyche, and understanding how our body temples function, right? And so we have to, isn't it wild? We leave school without understanding what motivates our brain and our psyche, right? A working knowledge of it. We do go to school. We're encouraged to go to school and to be educated for work and to become workers. And I don't want to demonize education, but I'm also, you acquire some wisdom if you've been on the planet for a while, and wisdom and clarity are worth their weight in gold, if not more. But we come out of school not really understanding our body temples. And to keep things very simple, if we understood and had like, if we really understood how precious our body temples are, and if we really just got the magnitude of we don't get another one, I don't think there could be any way that we would inflict the type of damage, literal damage. And I'm not trying to be a party pooper, but we put a lot of damage on our body temples. And again, I don't want to make our parents wrong, because this is cyclical, and it's programming, and it's culture, right? It's popular culture. But we do a lot of damaging things to our in the form of entertainment, pleasure, and fun. And these are social habits that are passed down to us. But for example, have any of you folks ever seen what atherosclerosis is? I invite you, homework, to go on YouTube and pull up a video. I have a list, but of atherosclerosis, and watch it being removed from the arteries. And I'd love to hear what thoughts come up for you. Right. I would love to hear. I don't want to make this too drawn up. I would love to hear what thoughts come up for you as you watch the process of atherosclerosis being removed from your arteries. Right. If you've ever watched, because if this is the information age, so we have access in minutes to, and we have the opportunity to peek in on surgeries, as well as to look at people's, what we're putting into our hair and how we're doing our locks. There's a lot of stuff that can really catapult you, I would say, into clarity. I like things that are immediate paradigm shifters, because I found that it saves me a lot of time. And I found certain patterns that give me clarity the quickest. I like clarity because when I'm very clear, I don't have to try so hard to eat healthy, because I'm crystal clear on why I choose to consume what I consume. If that's bitters, if that's greens, over the years, people may think, oh, you're so disciplined. And I've often thought, even though I say it, I don't think people really take it seriously, or maybe they don't have a frame of reference. But I'm very clear to the suffering that certain forms of consumption have resulted in my family, in my community, and even seeing it over the years in my clients. So perhaps being on the end of seeing clients over and over and over for years and years, and seeing clients from every demographic in terms of access to finances and access to resources, and from different cultures, there's certain patterns that are distinct when it comes to suffering based on our consumption. Not just these conditions we're born with based on our consumption. So anyway, a lot of the messages for our consumption and the ideas for our consumption come from programming, from religious programming, social programming, on schools, and definitely what's marketed to us on television and commercials. And I just think it's programming is deep. I consider it a form of hypnosis. I observe that is a form of hypnosis. And it's actually really simple, and it's very profound, and it works. Because how else could you get somebody to put something that is poisonous and extremely caustic and toxic on our scalps, in our mouths, things that are actually damaging, like to risk, like there's certain things I would never try, but due to fear, right? Basic fears, you can get human beings to do almost anything. So I'm just going to divert for a second, and I'm just going to mention the 6, some say there are others, but 6 basic human fears. They are fear of ill health, and in that a sub-fear in that would be pain, fear of death, fear of, and death, I will also add in there, death as we know it in this particular life form, but we all want to stay alive, right? Fear of poverty, fear of old age, fear of the loss of love of someone, or never having love, fear of criticism, which also a sub-fear in it is fear of failure. So think about how all of those, or I invite you to consider how those basic human fears are actually the undertone of what drives us to consume. Really, if we were to check in, like almost like in a frantic panic state, and it lands and it manifests in certain types of behaviors. So, this is how we can be not confident in what we've got, right? So you may feel a way because your hair looks a certain kind of way, right? Let's be real. If I was to go into corporate America, and I've worked in corporate America before and in the travel industry, years ago, this would not be acceptable. It was even in one of my company manuals that locks, and in parentheses, dreadlocks, what else did they call it? Dreadlocks and some other kind of locks were not acceptable. This was actually years ago in a company manual. And I remember thinking I wanted to go to Japan. So my hair was natural back then. I had cut it off. I didn't mind wearing a peach fuzz, very, very low cut. Some call it Caesar. I didn't mind doing that so I can go to Japan back then. I had a goal. And actually, I had designs in my hair. I cut the designs out of my hair, which I absolutely love, put the wig on, and I went to Japan. But after a while of working in the industry, eventually, I grew my hair out and I started wearing double hand strand twists, and I had them done very nicely. And I would do them every couple of days so they look fresh. And I actually got them approved, which actually some other people had a problem with. But because of the way I carried myself in the style, and I kept it very polished looking, I was able to wear my hair. And it was double strand twists. Some of the other Afro women thought they were locks, and there were several people that were complaining. But that's another story. But I managed to wear my hair and eventually took that wig off, and eventually just cut it off and did whatever I wanted with my hair. But I found a way to make it very polished and professional looking in the industry that I was working with. But again, back to this hair. Many women, Afro women, we feel very insecure and may feel not chosen because of our hair. And my hair is actually very, very fine. It's delicate. And this is one of the reasons why I have found that semi-freeform locks is so complementary to our hair. And I found it's like it's an epiphany. It's an epiphany that some of what we want to run away from, right, due to fear, or we avoid, can actually set us free. When I say free, releasing us from, I will call hair jail, right? We'll constantly and I don't want to demonize slicking your hair or whatever you want to do, because I've gone through everything natural. It's been years since I've had a perm. You couldn't pay me to put that in my hair because it was damaging and that was stressful. But just to embrace what you've got. And this can be a challenge for women that may feel away if you have alopecia or alopecia areata or thinning hair. But the interesting thing, right, and I call this the backdoor mentality, the things that we fear in our avoidance, we can actually experience and draw to us the very things that we fear. For example, in being so fearful and preoccupied with our hair, we wind up picking out the eyebrows, trying to fix, and trying to slick and snatch the edges to the point we damage the very thing that we're overly concerned about, right? Does that make sense? Again, we're so focused from a perspective of fear, scared of not having edges. So we slick it to make it look more, and we keep pulling it till we damage it. Isn't it interesting? Many of us women out there can notice that we damage our eyebrows, constantly trying to make it look like something else. So there's an art in there. I think there's a balance, an art to beautification that I think this comes to women. I think there also there are some men that are drawn to that type of expression. There's something about it, and it is a magic about beautification, or the art. It's a type of expression. Whether it's when women we take and, I've done this back in the days, take a little bit of eyeliner and turn it up at the sides, and I have long eyelashes, so there was a time I would wear a lot of mascara. I would say if I was to wear makeup per se, that would be my favorite. But it's a play to accentuate and to it's a play with beauty and flowers. It's a form of creativity and expression. So although I love, and I think it's health is my number one priority. Health is for me, my number one beauty product. I still get the play of jewelry and scents and flowers. It's an art. It's art and I enjoy it. But my health comes first. So this here, we're manipulated almost into being very paranoid about our hair, and it causes us not to celebrate or to even explore what it is that we have. And we have a long history of having to hide our hair in the American culture and our experience here. Having to hide it because people just were not feeling this different hair. But even when the hair was loose natural, I found different two-strand twists that didn't make my scalp itch, and where my fluff and my puff of this cottony textured hair, where there were just styles that look very nice with my hair. And so now I've done everything that I could with cornrows, double strand twists, flat twists, low haircuts. I think it was many years ago I did some kind of Senegalese twist, which was some kind of extension. But just to embrace, I always wanted to embrace what was mine. So on this journey now I always wanted to be able to wash and go. I'm like, how come the other girls, women of other cultures, the vanilla girls, they can wear their hair wash and go? Why can't we be carefree like that? So this has been a whole exploration in sitting and exploring radical self-acceptance. So in this very thin, fine hair, I found as it grows out into a puff, I'm like, I've got my version of Lioness hair. So I love Valerie June's hair. I would love thick Congo natis, but I'm also an acceptance of my hair grows very fine. It's so fine that all of my locks are growing in flat and they're combining. So in listening to the internal dialogue of even fears that can come up, oh my gosh, you'll only have 10 locks, but that's what the hair is doing, or it's going to look crazy like still pulse, which is kind of attractive, but I don't want still pulse. So sometimes we won't venture to even explore and see how we can feel really confident with our own skin, not having to wear makeup. That's a choice, but to just be able to sit and enjoy and relax into what it is that we've got. So I found, this hair, to me, it's been very freeing and liberating, even though, I'm like, oh, should I pull them apart? But these I can't pull apart, but just seeing what the hair can do. And it's like, wow, it may be 10, 20 locks. It's not a lot of fine hair, but then it gets thin, but it's doing what it's doing. And there's something we're just sitting in the process and seeing, right? And dismantling those fears and really and sitting with yourself. You can get like a quiet smile, if you will, and a confidence with seeing like, wow, this is really me. This is what I look like. The first time that I cut my last chemicals out of my hair, which is graduating from high school, my last year in high school, I never felt so beautiful in my whole life. And the epiphany that I did not have to do something to myself to make myself beautiful was like, I will never forget that feeling. And I see some women that look beautiful with different, straight hair. Afro women have straightened hair, and I'm not going to knock beauty. We can all appreciate beauty. But the psychological freedom of knowing that you don't have to torture yourself in styles that are too tight. And I think it does something to us when we feel like we have to turn ourselves inside out. So the perspective and the intention that we're coming from, I think, is what makes the difference. If we're coming from a place of, I don't feel good enough. If I don't have this on, I won't be pretty. I won't be chosen. We're not really even choosing ourselves, right? We can't sit in appreciation of ourselves because of all of the messages that are coming at us. I think that even drive us kind of crazy, right? And contributes to depression, right? And then we're told to get a makeover, right? Makeover from what? So I'm much more sensitive now to the undertones, which I don't think we really get when we're younger, right? In our teens. A lot of the things that we're putting on supposedly to make us more confident may not realize what I call comes through the back door. at its foundation is really a lack of confidence, because when you feel like if you take these things off, you're not good enough. And you may notice if your face or your expression may be a little sadder when you take off some of these products, right? So I think it's something to perhaps just to sit with and listen to our internal dialogue about the messages that we're getting, because there's an undertone, even though it would seem that some of these products making us feel better, but if you don't have them, you are not enough. And it really messes with our head. Same thing with acne. There was a time where I had a lot of acne and scarring, and as someone that has worked in fitness and that has had my body very sculpted, and several different times have transformed my body. Now I even relax because I know how quickly my body responds to exercise and strength training, and that is a form of movement that I love, so I don't worry about it. But it's somebody that has had many healthy habits. It was torturous to me to have so much acne scarring. Even my son would say, "Mommy, why does your skin look like that if you eat so healthily?" So I did figure out, it took me years to really get clear and to sit with myself to see what was at the root and causing it. Because even constantly running out for Proactive and running out for everything on the market in the drugstore, and then buying every expensive concoction in the health food store, it didn't address the back door, right? What were the habits and what was driving my habits that was having me doing things that was sabotaging my skin, basically. So even every now and then, when I get a blemish, like I had one recently that was here, it is really something, and I feel so relieved that I know it will pass, and that my body temple is processing and releasing something through this large eliminative organ, is passing out stuff that's in there. Too much fats. For me, I don't eat junk food, so which is amazing to me. So it may mean I'm not eating, I'm eating things that are too hard for my liver and for my body, my digestive system to process. So it's really something to sit and to observe, right? To get kind of calm, so that we're not just driven to keep out of anxiety, overfeeding, not being attention to the amounts that we're eating, what is appropriate for us. It's so much anxiety because all of the messages we're being bombarded with. So we're just consuming from a space of stress, and consuming many substances that are masquerading as food. There are many things we're consuming. I was a junk food junkie. I was raised on every flesh. I'm trained classically as a chef. I've eaten every junk, high end to low end. I've externed at one of the top restaurants in New York. So I love food, but coming through the back door, food is primarily fuel. And many of us are using it to pacify ourselves and to self-soothe, right? Sometimes we're eating so much starch, even if it's healthy. We're eating so much popcorn. I was a popcorn addict. You can't out-cheat me with food. We're trying to soothe ourselves and distract ourselves, make ourselves feel better with the crunchy starch, and even with brown rice and potatoes. But if we don't comprehend, and this is something I work with my folks, with my clients with, because people may think it's just the exercise on top. And if you've ever had a personal coach or trainer, after a while you get it's not, and I'm not a therapist, but it's not just the exercise that you're working with. You're working with a lot of emotions, right? That's your fitness, your movement practice is like your dojo. So in any event, a lot of the foods we're eating, like the starch, is when we can't get full, and we're just eating mindlessly and comforting ourselves. It may not occur to us that we're trying to get full, right? We're trying to get full. We're trying to get full. We're trying to emote something that has nothing to do with physical food. As delicious as food is, as sensual as is, as delicious, and I can get into the nuances of balsamic vinegar and different smoked sea salt and these flavors, you know, it's not the food. that we're trying to fulfill. So there's stuff coming through the back door. So if you look at the beginning of this communication, it's why it's so important to understand just at a basic level our psyche, right? Because companies have gazillion-dollar budgets to understand our psyche and how to manipulate those fears and put images, right? And tones and jingles to get us to act, to try to neutralize all that anxiety and fear. It's actually quite amazing. I find it's fascinating. So all of that acne and what kind of feelings come up for us? Failure, um, unwanted, unloved, perhaps feeling ostracized, ugly. You know, sometimes you sit and listen to the dialogue. What do you do with that dialogue? You know, because this is driving a lot of our behaviors. It can drive us to smoke, things that actually destroy the body temple. I can think of colleagues and clients and folks that have suffered from years of smoking cigarettes. You know, I remember being a little girl sneaking behind with my brothers after a parents' party to try a cigarette butt. And we're like, this is disgusting. Like, why do you do that? Right. But isn't it amazing how much social pressure can get us to buy into things, right? Groupthink and to put ourselves and our body temples in harm's way in order to fit in. Amazing. So it could greatly benefit us to get a basic understanding of how the psyche this works and how we're constantly trying to avoid fear. I would just add in there many of the things that we fear, if we can't objectify it, take it out of the head and put it on paper and see it objectively, we're trying to avoid things, but somehow through the back door, our psyche is having us choose things that are creating the very result we're trying to avoid. So this can relate to acne because we have many habits that can cause acne. Interesting, the doctor will tell you have nothing to do with food. As somebody whose face was all pockmarked up, you know, I have some older videos on this channel. If you go through, you can see what my face looked like. And I had a lot of healthy habits, but I had some other habits too that were greatly contributing to the acne. And I could tell you, my face cleared up with food and lifestyle. Simple. And it wasn't even all the products inside of the health food store. So hopefully this can give some encouragement to women that may be feeling a certain way about their very fine hair. If you just let the hair do what it does, and if you just stop, perhaps you can always cut it off. Because if this hair was hanging on, you know, if I was looking like Bozo the Clown or whatever, and I'd cut it off because I feel very confident and beautiful with very, very low hair. You know, but also I want to experience length and you want to see what can the hair do if you just leave it alone. Scalp is clean. There are no products. It's an epiphany. So it's a journey you can go on and you'll see what it looks like. Yeah, all of them are coming in flat. Most of the videos on YouTube tell you know how to avoid flat locks and how to twist them. But again, the things that we're running away from is actually freeing because the flatness and it wide and being puffy makes your hair look fuller. Right. So isn't that interesting? Just embracing some things and learning, perhaps, or exploring, sitting still with yourself, accepting what's there can be one of your greatest strengths. A lot of the hair that we're running away from, any natural style I've ever had, I've only received compliments. Especially when I've gone around different countries internationally, and just the confidence that comes with rocking what you've got, you know. So also in our weight. So again, as someone that's worked as a personal trainer, fitness coach, a nutrition coach, so many of us, especially women, Afro women, uh, our body temples are suffering under the weight of our organs being overstressed, right? And a lot of times when we're having what I will call the party in your mouth and self-soothing and pacifying ourselves with these delicious flavors, we're not greetings. We're not taking into consider more so than we're not taking into consideration. We somehow switch channels and go out of presence. We're not aware of the cues in our body of satiation. and if we've had enough, because we're emoting with food. We're trying to feel. We have sensory stuff, but we're so into the sugar, salt, fat, sugar, salt, fat. And especially if you're eating processed foods, it's no wonder you can't get full. So I'll give you a little hint, because most of your body is what? Most of our body is what? Water. And all of those crunchy, delicious things, even the things from these new markets and, the Trader Joe's and the Thrive markets. And interesting, they constantly get savvier to sell us stuff, and they may be upgraded, what I would call health junk, but they're still devoid of water. And somehow, even though they have changed and they're better quality, it's still a bunch of puffed up air and powders and salt and flavorings devoid of water, right? So another way to think of it is, and here's a way that I think something that can be very helpful, and I work with this with my clients. An easy way to think of it, right, is that they're not beautifying foods. And I was a blue corn chip fan. I mean, again, I was junk food junkie, and I've experimented and explored every type of food and done ketos or everything in the fitness industry for years. But something that can give us a lot of quick clarity and perhaps shorten our learning curve is that these foods are not, no matter how tasty they are, they're not beautifying foods. And isn't one of the reasons that we eat for beauty not just being in our physicality, but I would definitely say our vitality and energy level and our mood is also beauty. It's part of what makes us attractive. If I eat foods that make me feel really sluggish and down, that affects my beauty, my radiance, my mood, right? So foods, even the stuff in the nice packages, they will give you a certain mood. Now, initially, that party in your mouth is delicious, but perhaps check in, perhaps write in your journal, or maybe if you feel like you don't have the time to write in a journal, stop just for a few seconds, maybe take 10 deep breaths, and slow down and perhaps notice how is the food or what you're consuming, how is it making you feel in the long run? Because a lot of our consumption, there's a back door, and things that we may be partaking in that we think give us pleasure, in the end compound a lack of esteem, because intuitively we know a lot of these patterns of consumption are not healthy for our organs, not healthy for our skin, have given us a result perhaps of being overweight or carrying a lot of adipose tissue. When I'm referring to weight, I'm referring specifically to fatty tissue or unhealthy tissue, adipose tissue, particularly around the stomach area, which is a precursor for diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease. Do you have a video on how to handle the expensive fruits in the city? On this channel, on the intro of this channel, you'll see me in Chinatown, right? It says, "What is Body-Culinary?" So that's a shorter video. I have, you said how to handle the expense. I have quite a few food hauls on this, because I have this thing about eating healthy should not have to be straight from Grandma Lou. It's just, I'm sorry. My Grandma Lou, she was not vegetarian. However, she is my inspiration for consuming the way that I do, because she was so simple. She could, and in the ways, I call it the ways of the mothers, or the ways, I have my own little terms, but the ways of the grandmothers and the ways of the mothers. Both of my great grandmothers lived into their 90s and had their wits, they had their sense. And my grandma Lou, who I talk about all the time, my godparents and my grandma Lou, was also in her 90s. So I remember at her 90th birthday, she was jumping up to Mighty Sparrow, and she had like a sing-song voice. I call her like the ant and the hummingbird. She had a focus, and she was very light like a hummingbird, and she always made things better in her presence. So she always fed people. And I realized that, wow, she had a very abundant, prosperity conscious mindset, because there was never a time when you came into her home and somebody didn't get a glass of marby or sorrel and sweet bread or stew peas and rice, right? And her food was so delicious. It was simple, but it was just delicious. And it seemed, people talk about Jesus feeding people with a loaf and a couple of fish. Well, I watched my grandma do that in real life. I also, in that, I mean, in the practical sense, there was never, we don't have enough to share. So somehow everybody came in, there was a plate of food placed before them. It was delicious, and that's just what it was. It was just like breathing, right? So what I got from grandma was to feed people and to share food, and the response that you got back, which it was natural, just people feeling joy, feeling comforted, a sense of security, a sense of pleasure. So I noticed in that you don't have to be so preoccupied with food. And so you can eat when it's time to eat. And when you're done, you can leave and move on to other things, right? Because it was so pleasant to be with her. Remember that story? So also, I would say that my grandma Lou, one of the biggest principles of my grandma Lou was eat your own food. So no matter where we went, my grandma had those old-fashioned bread bags with the little plastic clip that you could twist. Those were her Ziploc bags, and we didn't go anywhere. A bus ride or one of her church bus rides where she had her own food. It was her fish cakes and bits and cocoa bread or whatever. My grandmother, we carried our own food. So those are the principles of my grandma, right? In addition, a lot of the tropical Caribbean flavors that made the food taste so good, I feel that I'm adding to that tradition, right? So in the principles of Kwanzaa, to leave our community, right, better than we inherited it, I use a lot of those things like my grandma Lou's sweet coconut bread. You know, I was talking with my son, well, how do we make that, right? Because I don't use the white flour, but I've upgraded and added to that tradition, added to those recipes by not cooking in about a bunch of oil, not using white flour. So I'm not contributing to diabetes or obesity. And I'm taking a lot of those ingredients and making them whole and fresh, right? Because they don't even need the sugar. So I'm adding, you know, so I took the sweet bread and made it to Grandma Lou's coconut drops, right? If that makes sense. So I'm using all those flavors, and actually a lot of those traditional ingredients and the tropical ingredients have a lot of healing properties in it. The thyme, the hot peppers, the aloe, the bush tea. That is our culture, right? That is our culture. Those are things that we can do quite naturally on an everyday basis. And Grandma Lou was big on rolling pennies to put in a savings account on a plastic lunch tray. So if Grandma Lou was rolling pennies, I was rolling pennies. And she said, when you're ready to go home, you go home. Good. So she saved. She didn't have Susie Orman. She didn't have a financial planner. She had a focus. And she said, you must have your own. And I was thinking, like, how am I supposed to do it? How am I supposed to do that? But she said, you must have your own. Right. I watched her make some of her own dresses. I had cousins and my sister that lived in the Caribbean, raised in the Caribbean. They were still had patterns and were making their dresses. So these were things that I saw as a little girl. So they are principles, right? You never know who's watching you, but children are watching you. So my grandma Lou will never know the impact that she had on me. The rolling of the pennies, the making the seasoning on those same plastic lunch tray, rolling pennies, picking peas, chopping up seasoning, grating the coconut for the bread. The principles of that are what I go by. And I've just added more fresh ingredients, taking out the flesh and the white flour, if that makes sense. So my grandmother, she ate delicious food and beautiful food, and she had all of her wits because she was eating her own food, and Grandma Lou rocked her own hair. And my other great grandmothers, two grandmothers, all of them in their 90s, they were comfortable in their skin, beautiful skin. My grandma Lou, dark chocolate, beautiful skin. She used to have cute little cornrow styles. So she was comfortable, and what really makes her stand out was she was so pleasant to be around. She didn't give me negative deposits. So because she was so wonderful to be around, so I'm dissecting as a child, I'm just saying, why is she not angry like the other people? I'm sure if these women lived to be, and Grandma Lou lived to be almost 100, she's seen some stuff as a dark chocolate woman from the Caribbean. But I wonder, did she seem like such a pleasant, she had joy in her. So I'm thinking, I want to be around her and like her. Why is she that way? So that's what made my eye very keen to how she was living. Impact is strong when watching someone going about their daily lives. It might even be stronger than teaching. Yes, because that is the teaching. We can read all these books, right? But I saw her moving and walking around. So I hear the story of Jesus, no offense, but I saw my grandma Lou feed people. I saw her roll those pennies. I saw her work for people. She didn't have a bunch of medical benefits. When it was ready, she went back home to the Caribbean. And when I finally visited as an adult, I was like, wow, this warm sunshine on her skin. No wonder she's pleasant. And then she and other women in her neighborhood and community would go checking on each other and send seasoning and food back and forth. So they had joy because they supported each other. So these were things that my eye was able to discern, right? Was able to discern. And so although I had my cousins on the other side, my southern side, that's how I got introduced to perms. And I begged my mom for a perm. My hair was nice and healthy, probably would have went down my back. But I begged my mom for a perm. And when she finally relented, enter the scalp burns. That was actually quite traumatizing to have, because my hair texture, it just wouldn't take. It doesn't, what is it, high porosity? Now I've learned with all this technology and new education on YouTube, it's the hair that does not like to be messed with. It doesn't like perms. And I had blisters and scabs all over my whole scalp. Oh my gosh. Because, I was like, it's burning. Mommy, take it out. She was like, well, it didn't take it. And oh my gosh, it was so, it even makes me emotional. I got burns. I begged for a perm and I got burns, scabs all over my whole scalp. I remember picking up the scalp. That was so traumatizing. You couldn't pay me to put a perm in my hair. You couldn't pay me. Then with the jerry curl, yes, I had a jerry curl back then. I had curl activator. It's like all over my collars, all over my clothes. I'm like, that was horrible. That's why I call it hair gel. Then I wanted corn. I love cornrows, but every time, even when I had a master braider, for some reason, when my scalp is exposed in the cornrows, my scalp would be itching profusely when exposed to air in 2 days. I was like, this is too much. And then another time I had my braids, it was so tight from the braider. It permanently damaged me right here. It was like pulling the follicles out. I was on a trip for the company I work for, and my braids were so tight. I was on an airplane. I was putting ice cubes and Vaseline on my scalp. By the time I got home, I took scissors and cut it out through the braids. I didn't even care if the braids were being cut. So can you dig like why I have no desire? That was torture, unnecessary torture. So this to me is like an epiphany. I don't have to kill myself. Every Black woman's story, those hair relax, not only are they not fun, I worked in a holistic health center for some years. One of the main complaints was fibroids. And it's like, if you look on the package, it actually says you should not be putting this stuff in your hair if you're pregnant. That's a clue. This is our brain. This is the brain. The brain is right there. We're putting caustic chemicals. So I like beauty. Maybe at some point I'll do a photo shoot and put some makeup on the play. But fortunately now you have things that are less caustic with the ingredients. But the main thing is if your hair and your scalp are healthy, you just don't have to. If you want to play, you can. But you don't have to put that stuff on and feel beautiful. And women, especially, I'm speaking as an Afro woman, it has been torture, even as little girls, when you just don't feel good enough. You don't feel good enough if you're not doing what the other girls are doing. This is part of what has us put ourselves in harm's way sexually too early, because we're trying to fit in, because society, we're getting these messages. We're getting these programs and messages we're not good enough. So we have to prove ourselves to be accepted by folks that don't have our best interests and put ourselves in harm's way with our health, with these caustic products, with taking our cues from music videos that are misogynistic and degrade us. It's too much. It's too much. So excuse me if I want to sit and bask in the glory of how I have popped out onto this planet. And I actually feel very sensitive because it's triggering, because I have to look back. There were shoes that I paid for. I paid for these expensive shoes that I felt like I had pit bulls on my toes. I was constantly torturing myself. Then through the back door, still with this mentality, you buy all of this stuff, all of this makeup, all of these clothes, and you still don't feel good enough, so you eat yourself to death to comfort yourself. Oh my gosh. It's a cycle of madness. So I think, and then let's just compound it. We're going to get some medication. Now it's common. Now it's not uncommon and not demonizing those that take medication, but it has become common to just medicate the anxiety that we're getting from all these friggin' messages. So part of me, if I'm into like, I'm just not doing it. Maybe at some point I could play, but if I do, it'll be because I want to. But my health is my number one beauty product. And relaxation is very key to that, believe it or not. So I have this thing in a way I work with folks and myself as well with going through the back door and understanding the back door, the undertones of what's being sold to you, the undertones, even in relating and folks coming on to you and trying to approach you to get your attention, right? Suitors, folks that are pursuing you, understanding passive aggressive language and the actual message, not what people are saying, but what they're actually trying to sell to you. And you trying to sell me something that at its root, I would only purchase from you, right? You're selling it to me under the guise of you are not good enough and you'll be good enough once you have my product in your hand. But I don't need that stuff. So throwing away my shower caddy was actually very liberating. And so I'm protective, very protective of my psyche, and I'm protective of my health. And so when folks over the years have asked me, why do I consume a certain kind of way? Because I can definitely see with the mastectomies. I've had another cousin die recently of morbid obesity. Morbid obesity rampant in my family, in my community. I'm crystal clear on why I consume the way I consume. I've spent, I couldn't tell you how many thousands and thousands of dollars over the years in investing in my education, investing in courses, buying foods, trying foods, tossing foods, all in an effort. A lot of investment for me to get clear. A lot of investment for me to get clear. And it's been worth it because when you're clear, you don't have to struggle with your why. So it doesn't matter to me if Muhammad, Malcolm X, my mother, other people eating certain things. I understand now why I'm eating for me. So I don't feel so much social pressure to go along to get along when it comes to putting myself in harm's way. And that mentality extends itself even into relationships. So I really appreciate the wisdom of life experience because clarity is so precious. Puts in harm's way. Anything. So I have a litmus test. I tell you, it's such a shortcut to clarity. It's a different way of thinking, right? It's wisdom. This is not Google. You can't Google wisdom. You might even have all these sayings, but for example, the principle of putting yourself in harm's way. If it puts me in harm's way, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. If I have to put myself in harm's way, if I have to eat something that's going to clog my arteries and make me put on unhealthy weight, it's not worth it. I can invest a little more. I'd rather pay for the blueberries, right? Or fresh fruits and vegetables are not going to harm me. There's no cholesterol in the and vegetable kingdom and queendom, So education and educating myself and developing my own curriculum, in addition to other schools I've gone through. All of that investing to learn to get clear has been worth every dime. And sometimes we're just jumping on everybody's bandwagon on YouTube who may not be very clear themselves or have stayed and done something long enough to see the results. And we're just following everybody. It can add to the anxiety. That being said, there's nothing wrong with experimenting on yourself. I've said, and I have another channel, video on this channel. I encourage people, don't follow folks. Don't follow me because you'll constantly jumping on people's bandwagon. However, if you find something that resonates with you that you want to try it out, but educate yourself, invest in yourself, because it's one thing to think something, but it's another thing to know something. So there's certain things I know. For example, if a doctor is telling me that what you eat has nothing to do with your skin, my experience has been it's only food, fresh foods, and whole living foods that cleared up my skin. And I had tried every product, natural and unnatural. It's food, and I was already eating healthy, but the style and the way in which I was eating greatly contributed to my acne. So now if I get a little blemish, it just fades on its own. So all that Venus de Milo and Ambi skin tone cream, remember that stuff? How stinky it was? You know, putting ourselves in harm's way for what? The body really, you can relax when you can know that the body has an intelligence, just like it will heal a cut. It can heal your skin, but you got to get out of the way. Because if you spend it on all these expensive herbs and detoxes, but you're retox, right? You detox to retox. Spend all this expensive money. I used to work in the center, a center that had lots of massage therapists and colon therapists. I've had quite a few colonics in my the earlier part of my journey. But I don't even worry about that now because ideally your tubes should be working on their own. If you clean it out, but you retox it, you're not getting the full benefit of the herbs and all this expensive stuff that you're taking in. If your gut is so clogged from years, then we may not want to hear this. I didn't want to hear this when somebody said it to me. So I'm going to end this because I didn't realize I was on here so long. But this may not sound nice, but everything we've put into our body, you got to pay the tab for everything we put into it. And 1 or 2 herbal drinks, or even sometimes a week fast, which can also be loaded, and we can have a binge purge mentality even with fasting. But just, a couple of vegetables or a little handful of salad is not going to make up for all the things, even in ignorance, that we've put into our body over the years. And as one of my mentors used to tell me when I was like so frustrated with my skin, she said, better out. She said, you're blessed. And I was thinking, I'm not blessed because I hated having all that scar. And oh my gosh, it made me feel so embarrassed. I hated it, even though my body was ripped up. She said, give thanks that your skin, your organs are still responding because some people's bodies are deadened and they're not even functioning. So that was a whole nother perspective. If that stuff is not coming out, then that could be a growth or something growing into your body. So we never think that we will have to pay the cost for all of the entertainment consumption that we're doing. I get it, right? That we're trying to make ourselves feel better, but it's coming through the back door. So it feels good and it's relaxing. It's a relief to know that I have my own little way of speaking. But I like to say fruits and vegetables don't leave waste on your waist. So it's simple, like Grandma Lou. It's simple. It's just real simple. I need simplicity, right? Because there's so much stuff competing to get on my bandwidth, and it's only so much space on the bandwidth. So the fruits and vegetables are simple, and the perspective that I'm coming from is simple, and it helps me to relax and allowing my hair to fluff out, and knowing I don't have to have oil on my covers and my pillow, and my hair is lightweight and it's free. I can relax, and relaxation is key to allowing our body temples to fall to a natural weight or adjust to a natural weight. This body is highly intelligent, but a lot of times we're getting in the way. So I hope that this is helpful for you. Please feel free to, I'll give you another gem before I go. Your circle of influence, right? So you may or may have not have heard that the 5 people who you spend the most time with, if they're broke, you're going to be broke. If they're overweight or not conscientious of your health, you're likely to be overweight. I remember I've had several friends that were mothers that we were all doing fitness competitions. So how you like that, right? Everybody, when they would pull their food bags out, everybody had really healthy food. Everybody was doing cardio. So that was the inspiration. So you may want to check and look around and see, do you have people around you where financial literacy and upgrading your knowledge of financial literacy is a standard and something they strive for. Health is a standard. They have a movement practice or exercise, something that they actually enjoy and also willing when it comes to fitness. If people are challenging these things or taking these things on, you're going to be influenced by each other. The one or any of the people in your circle of influence, do they invest in their personal development? Do they invest in learning how to communicate better, right? That is definitely something on us as a Afro collective, or humans in general, but definitely as an Afro collective. We could use a lot of development of the muscle of communication skills, listening skills. That's something I have to be mindful of constantly, is we can be so anxious and not listen to people when they're right in front of us. So do your folks around you, do they prioritize communication skills? These are all forms of consumption. Do they invest in themselves? Or do you have folks that just complain and have a sense of entitlement and feel that you can do anything to your health and your health should just be there without you doing anything, making no investment? Do you want a free surgeon or a free tax preparer? Because most likely, if you're always going for free, that's also a frame of thought. If you have a mentality of no reciprocity, then it's no wonder if you don't have health. If you think, it's kind of like trying to get over. If you think you can just eat whatever you want and your body temple should just be there for you. Or maybe you think that you deserve a fresh new body in the next life when you didn't even take care of this one. So does that really make sense? It doesn't have a foundation of principle. Yeah, but this lifestyle, it can be very, it doesn't have to be it can be challenging, but it doesn't have to be so hard. And what can perhaps shorten our learning curve is understanding the foundation and how important relaxation is, right? And if you're eating irritating foods, most likely it's going to irritate your brain. It's going to irritate your mood. And all of these things through the back door cause us to eat mindlessly and consume things merely for entertainment, which is a crazy cycle, spinach, or to binge on bitter herbs, right? So these are some things to explore. So I invite you to, if you don't have people around you in your circle of influence, I've been very creative. If I was the only one that was embarking on eating healthy around me, I found what I call friends. So a lot of times that was videos, that was audiobooks before there was a thing like they were popular. I would go to the libraries and I found cassette tapes, but I would listen to people that inspire me. I mean, I might even listen to something like this several times. And for years, I had a little DVD player in the kitchen. So I'm giving you some of my gems now. And I kept things on that resonated with me, and that inspired me and also gave me, right? So let's say today I would have a visual of somebody that has hair like this, of hairstyles I like. I would have a visual of fitness, right? Sometimes I'll be playing fitness videos while I'm preparing food. You see what I'm saying? So if you don't have people around you on that trajectory, then you might want to create that and be very mindful of what you have in your ear. So I love music and soul music, but sometimes I'll cut that stuff off and just listen to Afro-Brazilian house that made me want to move and exercise. Or I would listen to folks that I like. And now with YouTube, if you're making a positive use of the internet, you can find folks that inspire you, and you're coming away from the conversation or the communication uplifted with new information, with a different perspective that's inspiring you and motivating you to get into action around what you say is important to you. So hopefully this is helpful. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. Feel free to share this with someone who you could use some motivation and some inspiration to start a garden, to start a movement practice, to consume what I will call peaceful consumption, and to really embrace the hair and the skin that you have. It's so key, and it can actually be a joy, because I think it's funny, and it's an epiphany. It makes me chuckle and giggle like, wow, I could have been doing this the whole time. I could have been free. You know how much time and energy we're putting and money that we're putting into this to try to force it to do something that it doesn't want to do. And we don't have to do that. We can relax. I really want to encourage you, if you have acne or if you're not happy with your weight, if there's something that you don't like, you can invest in some education and apply some corrective action. Invest in some support for yourself, because I have never regretted a workout, and I always keep a coach. Even personal trainers, like, you hire a personal trainer, you got that right. I always keep some kind of a coach in my back pocket because it works, right? I'm not looking for a coach to tell me more of what I know. I may know a lot, but the Olympic athlete that gets new coaches and new teams of coaches, it's to take you to another result right? Business people that have big businesses get business coaches and leaders to have them go to another level. So I look for coaches to help me with the blind spots, right? And to go to another level of mastery and develop. So I invest in yourself and the company that you keep, the quality of the food. You may want to spend more for the blueberries, the chips, and some of the junk food. They seem like they're cheap, but they're actually not because you don't get full and you got to keep buying 8 bags of 25 cents. I don't even know if they're 25 cents now of chips, and you'll never get full because it's not real food. Create a great day on purpose, and I'll see you soon. This is going to be day 3. So I'm going to come on again in a few minutes. This is going to be day 3 of mini meditation and relaxation. All right, see you soon.